Indiana Jones has always been one of my favorite movie franchises. I probably loved it even more when I was a child, but nowadays I can appreciate it for just being great movies and for really being a great trilogy. Yes, I really actually like Temple of Doom a lot, and I'm not counting Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in this conversation because I actually, really hate that movie, kind of like a lot of other people. Very, very common opinion, I know. The Lego theme that was based off it was fantastic. Unfortunately, I wasn't into Lego when the theme released, so I never got any of the sets. I have got some of the figures over the years, really only the Indiana Jones twice, and I lost him the first time I got him, so, that kind of sucks, but I bought him again last year, and I'm very glad I did, because I love that figure a lot. Not to mention, just the sets were fantastic. There's gonna be about 16, I believe I'm ranking on this list, which is just an absurd amount. It's kind of like the Batman theme, where it lasted from about around 2006 or 7 to about 2009 or 8, somewhere around that time span, and it's a bunch of fantastic ways. They did a great job emulating the scenes from these movies, and it's so fantastic just to see how good these look in comparison to the scenes from the movies. And these are just fantastic sets in general. Before I get into the ranking, I would like to state that the polybags and the keychains won't be on here. Pretty obvious things, but I think it's better to state them before the video, before I get a bunch of comments like, "Where was the Brickmaster polybag? I didn't see it anywhere." Well, it's not on the list, or ranking, whatever you like to call it. I'm sorry. It's just not gonna happen. No reason to put that on here. Anyways, let's get right into the ranking. In last place, a set that doesn't deserve a lot of ridicule, actually, is set 7620 Indiana Jones Motorcycle Chase. As I stated literally just a second ago, this set doesn't have much wrong with it. Actually, I kind of like it a lot. It has a lot of great about it. I like the toll booth build a lot. I think that's a great fucking build, honestly. And it's a really cool build to get into such a small set like this. The Indiana Jones minifig is one of my favorite minifigs ever. I think the face print they have on him is fantastic, and it really emulates Harrison Ford from this time really well. Not to mention the hat piece they give on him is the perfect hat piece, and it looks a lot like the hat piece that Indiana Jones actually wears on his adventures. And the torso is a great print. There is no back printing, of course, because this is from, like, what, 2008? So it's definitely an older theme, so there's going to be no back printing. But I still think the torso is a fantastic print with all the, the bagginess and the shirt layering on the torso print. I think that's fantastic. Not to mention that they even it out with those legs, those tan legs. I think that's a great, contrast between the torso and the legs. And I think it just looks really nice. For the other minifigs in the set, you have Indy's dad, famously played by Sean Connery, R.I.P. Just a fantastic fig. I really like the face print they use a lot on him. Everything else is a little to me. The torso and legs especially. The hat I think is really cool and actually emulates Sean Connery from the movie really well. And actually I think it's a really good figure. Now the last minifig I have to talk about of the set is described as German Soldier 1 according to Brickset, which it's an minifig. I don't really care for it too much. It has the Bruce Wayne face print, I guess the young Anakin little hat piece, the kind of pilot hat piece, which is a pretty cool piece in my opinion actually, and I don't think I actually have it because I didn't collect a lot of Lego back then. Obviously I've stated that in the beginning of the video. And yeah, he's a really basic figure. I don't really care too much about him. Really, the only other thing I would like to talk about in this set, which is really the only other build, are the two motorcycles. They're my negative of the set for sure. I don't care too much for them, especially the Russian guy's one. Who gives a fuck, to be honest? Who really gives a fuck about the Russian guy's motorcycle? It's just a basic motorcycle build. The other one, at least it has a cool sidecar build, which is a classic Forest meme, by the way. Classic brick film meme. Anyone in the brick filming community loves that. Yeah, just nothing really special. The sidecar build, while cool, doesn't really add anything to the set for me, and that's about all I have to describe for this set. I think it's a great set, but it definitely does deserve to be last on this ranking. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next is set 7916, the Chachula Cemetery Battle. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is another set where I can say that there's not much wrong with it. Starting out with the minifigs, we have Indiana Jones, who I talked about in the last segment, and you're gonna hear me call back to that last segment a lot, by the way. After him, we have the Mutt Williams, who I think is a fantastic minifigure. He has a childish face print with that great grin, and I think it actually accumulates the character really well. I also think the torso is a great asset of the fig as well. I like the embroidered Mutt's name on the leather jacket. I think that gives off a good vibe for Mutt the biker feel, if you know what I'm talking about. The other two figs in the set are cemetery guards, for which I think the face print makes them unique enough for them to be decent figs. But there isn't anything else really notable about these figures, which just makes them eh. Now, for the other builds of the set, starting with the motorcycle build, there's nothing notable about it, really. It's just the basic mold for motorcycles that you would get with some parts on the side. Now, the other build is a cemetery itself. I think the front half of the build is basic with some decent play features, but not really anything notable. On the other hand, the back half is better than the first half, starting with the skeleton, which gives a detail of a dead body along with the treasure chest, spider webs, and goblet, giving off a cool aesthetic of an eerie age to the grave. I think this is a decent set with some cool figs to round it out. Time to move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 7195, Ambushing Cairo. This Indiana Jones set is a pretty good one in my opinion. I think there's a lot of good about it. Starting out with the minifigs, we have the Indiana Jones, who's a different variant compared to the normal one that I've talked about in the last two segments. This one has, you know, a different torso, which is a pretty cool torso, and it's kind of an outbackish look, you know, just like how it was in the film, because this does take place in Cairo, which is in Egypt, so, you know, pretty deserty. So I think it's a good look for Indy, and I think it's just a good minifig in general. The next figure in this set is the Willie Scott. I'm not a big fan of this fig, especially the face print. I always thought those face prints look weird, and they're gonna pop up again in this video, so I'm gonna say that again for these face prints. But yeah, she's an alright fig. I think the hairpiece works well for her. And the torso's not great, but it's a pretty decent torso. Yeah, I mean, I don't really find her particularly fantastic or anything, but she's pretty good. Now, there are two other figs in this set. There's the Cairo Thug and the Cairo Swordsman. The Cairo Thug's an okay fig. The ninja headpiece or hood or whatever you'd like to call it, you know, it's not anything special or anything, and his face print's pretty cool, but really nothing else about him really stands out. And the Cairo Swordsman, who had that awesome scene in Indiana Jones where Indy just shot him while he was swinging around his big sword or whatever. I think that was, you know, this is just a pretty great fig in general. I like a lot of the stuff about him. I like the turban piece he's wearing. I think this might be the first time it ever came in black. I think that's, you know, pretty fucking awesome. His head print, of course, fantastic. And yeah, he's just a pretty great fig. Moving on to the builds of the set, we have some interesting builds to say the least. This is definitely my least favorite part of the set. We have the wagon first. This is probably the worst build of the set. I mean, it's very square, if you know what I'm talking about, for a wagon, in my opinion. I think it should have been a little, like, built up a little bit with yellow bricks really showing. I don't like that. Maybe they're meant to be hay bales or something. That kind of makes a little bit of sense, but it does look a little weird. The other builds in this set are this really cool market stand, which I actually think is a great build. I mean, just looking at some of the techniques, using that car roof piece as the roof of the stand, I think looks really good. You know, just the poles, I think, look really nice with the 4 brown 1x1x1s rounded and the studs. I think that gives a good color contrast, and it just looks really good. And the apples hanging off from those backpacks is a really cool technique, honestly. It really gives that market stand vibe, and it's just really nice. And the golden plate's a cool piece. I always like to see that in sets, and it just really adds a good aesthetic here. The only other thing in this set is really a barrel. It's a barrel piece. It's cool. That's all I gotta say. Overall, this set was pretty decent. Not a bad set at all. And let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 7624, Jungle Deal. This is a second set from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull on the ranking, and let me talk about the minifigs first. Starting out, we have the Indiana Jones, which is the basic variant. Already talked about him in the first segment. Told you I'm going to call back to it a lot. We also have Mutt Williams, another repeat figure. I'm going to call back to another segment again. We also have Irina Spalko in this set, which is a figure that I haven't talked about yet, and she's going to show up a lot more in this ranking. Now, in general, I actually think this is a pretty great fig. I think she emulates the character of Irina Spalko very well. That's why I really like her a lot. True, she's pretty bland, especially with the leg printing and or lack of, I'm sorry, or, you know, no back printing, which is just obvious for this time. But I think she's a good fig. The face print really encapsulates her really well. I really like that a lot. And I guess her torso print's pretty good. Nothing too special, but yeah, I really like the figure a lot. That's all I gotta say for the minifigs, so let's move on to the builds. This set's a little bit of an accessory pack in my opinion. You got a bunch of small builds and whatnot, including the tent, which I think is a pretty cool build. It does have this canopy piece type thing though that's made of paper. You know, they also did this in the Lone Ranger set with the Tonto tent, but that was made out of plastic. I'm only stating that because I have that set, so that's the only reason I even know that fact. But this build is actually pretty good in my opinion. I kind of like it a lot, honestly, and the interior isn't that bad either. I thought it's pretty detailed. The cut in half table, yeah, it's all right. Doesn't really do anything for me. The campfire, I think, is a really cool detail, and I think it was actually built pretty well, even though it's like 6 pieces. And the weapons rack, I think, also is really cool with that really cool technique of putting weapons there. That's an awesome. Honestly, it's just a pretty good set in general. All around, I really like it. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. I just want to state, before I get into these next couple of sets, these were really hard for me to rank. Like, really. These are a bunch of fantastic sets. With that out of the way, up next is set 7625 River Chase. This set's really good, so let's start out with the minifigs. First off, we have the Indy, you know, the normal variant. It's just Indiana Jones. Next, we have the Marion, who I did call Willie Scott in my first segment, which is, yeah, not great. That's a pretty fucking retarded mistake in my opinion. But I think she's alright. You know, her face print I never liked. I do like her hair print, and I think I like the torso here a little more than the one in the Cairo set. But she's a pretty good fig. And we also have these Russian soldiers, who I think are okay figs. I really like the one with that weird grin, you know, the one that doesn't have the Bruce Wayne face. I think that's a pretty cool grin to give to him, even though it's not very much of a Russian look. I think it looks pretty good. And yeah, the minifigs were a pretty great selection in this set. For the builds of the set, we have this tree fort thing, which I think is alright. It's a little dinky in my opinion, but it is a pretty good build. I just don't like it, like, too much, in my opinion. It's a little turret area. I don't care for it amazingly enough. It does have that cool feature with the, neck coming out, though. I think my favorite build of this set has to be this car. It just looks really nice, you know. It has this really nice green vibe. It's just a really cool car. I think, like, it looks really good for a jungle cruiser, you know? I think it really interprets that style of car really well. There's also the boat, which is a decent build. It's just a normal piece, like a boat piece with a couple of bricks on top. It's alright. It does have that ore, though. That's pretty cool. This set also comes with a crocodile. I kind of just wanted to mention that because it's in here. That's all I had to say for this pretty good set. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 7622, Race for the Stolen Treasure. Now, really, the only reason this set is getting ranked below a lot of the ones coming up, it's really actually a quantity problem. Now, I do obviously first think of these sets on a quality basis. This set has a high amount of quality. It's a really good set, to be honest. I love it a lot. Starting out with the minifigs, we have the, you know, the normal variant of Indiana Jones. We've already gone over him several times before. There are 3 other minifigs in this set, which are all just German soldiers. They just all have different face prints. One of them I think looks really weird. It's the old Victor Crumb face print, which I actually think worked really well on that character. But for a German soldier, I don't know, like, the detail is kind of sparse compared to the other 2. It just kind of looks off to me. The other 2, I think, have great faces, though, and I think those are great figures. Moving on to the builds of the set, which are fantastic, by the way. We start out with this military truck buggy type thing. I'm not sure what to call it, but I think it's a pretty cool build. You know, the little gun turret they have in the back, I think that's a pretty cool addition. It's a really basic build compared to a lot of builds nowadays for turrets, but I thought it was pretty cool. I don't like how empty the trunk is, but that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really add or subtract anything from the set to me. There are also just some pretty cool building techniques with this vehicle, you know, like using the flag pieces to like cover the wheels. I always thought was really cool. I think that looks really nice too. Yeah, this is just a great build. Moving on to the military convoy, this is my favorite build of the set, and what a fantastic build it is. I think my favorite part about this build is just how the canopy goes with the convoy itself. I think it looks really nice, not to mention the technique they use is pretty fantastic. There are some panel pieces that I really don't know how to describe past that I attach the canopy to there, and I think it just works out really well. Another cool build on the convoy is the front, where we have these 2 lever pieces acting kind of like antenna type pieces, if you know what I'm saying. And then we got the vent up there, which is a very commonly used technique. And I just think it looks really nice. And I like the use of the window hinge piece there too. I think that looks really nice. Overall, I just think it's a really fantastic build. The other build of the set is just a horse, you know, it's nothing special. It's just a normal mold. And you can put the treasure chest from the set, which is full of like a bunch of studs, into the back of the convoy. It really plays along to the story of the set. Honestly, this set is just really awesome, and it's actually what I'd really like to get. It seems to be one of the more economical sets of the Indiana Jones line. That's not saying much, but if I find a good deal, I definitely might buy it. Up next is set 7198, Fighter Plane Attack. Now, with this set, the main thing that's gonna bring it down are the minifigs, so let's get right into them. Starting out, we have the Indiana Jones, who's just the normal variant, you know, already talked about him before. We also have Indy's dad, Sean Connery, of course, who I've also talked about before, so not much to say there. The only other figure in the set is German Soldier number 5, according to Brickset, of course, and yeah, this is a very basic figure. I feel like I've covered him 100 times already in this video, so, you know, not really that great, just really basic. And for the minifigs themselves, really basic selection, nothing too fantastic. For the builds of this set, we have 2 fighter planes, and they are both fantastic. I especially love the one with Indy and his dad. I think it's just a great build. Some of the detailing is just fantastic, including that sticker on the back with the bullet holes. I think that's a really cool addition, and it really adds a lot to the aesthetic of the fighter plane. I also just think the white and red color scheme really just works well. And some of these build techniques are absolutely fantastic, including those 2 like fence post type pieces to hold up both the wings. I think that's really cool, and that really shows off that type of feel. I also think the turret build at the back of the cockpit is another really cool feature. Of course, that is the famous scene from the movie, is when Indy's dad is shooting at the other fighter plane. But I think it just looks really nice, and it works really nice as a play feature too in this set. Now, for the other build of the set, we have the other fighter plane, which I find pretty to be honest. The build for the wings looks very amateurish and not really that great. I think it's a little too bulky for my taste. I guess that isn't the correct word, but that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. I also don't like the technique they use for the cockpit. I just don't think it looks good. It feels too edgy for me, you know, in the literal sense, and I just never really liked it. Otherwise than that, I think this plane build is pretty decent. That's really all I have to say about the set. Pretty great set in my opinion. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 7621, Indiana Jones and the Lost Tomb. My thoughts on this set are very similar to how I felt about the last set, where the minifigs are definitely the weaker part of the set and don't really add that much, while the build is absolutely fantastic. Now, starting out with the minifigs, we have the normal variant of Indiana Jones. Gonna keep repeating back to that first segment because I'm always gonna have to. And we also have the Marion figure, who I already have talked about before in the Escape from Cairo segment, I believe. So yeah, that's really the minifig selection. Really poor in my opinion. Now time to talk about the real fantastic part about this set, which is the build. Now the build is of like a room where you'd find a tomb in. I know that rhymes and I didn't mean for that, so that kind of sounds retarded. But anyways, I think it looks fantastic. This is obviously of the famous scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, where the guy's face melts off the Nazi's face, you know, and all the snakes are there and Indy's like, snakes, I hate snakes, you know, that scene. I think it emulates that room really well, especially with like the tombs they have in there and the fire surrounding the Ark. I think that all makes this a really good emulation of that scene, and I think it really looks nice. The Ark build itself also looks fantastic compared to what the actual Ark was in the movie. I think it works out really well, and it really shows that Ark field, all the gold and whatnot. I think it looks fantastic. There's also a really cool play feature in the set. It has to be one of my favorite play features in any set of all time, which is where at the top of the room, there's like a trap door, and you open it, and all the snakes just start falling down. And I think that's just awesome and a really cool Easter egg to have in this set. Just what a fantastic set. I think the builds are amazing, while the minifigs are a little, yeah, they're a little 50-50 for me. I still love it though. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 7626 Jungle Cutter. Now this is another set I can describe where the builds really make this set fantastic. The minifigs aren't that bad though. Let's start out with them. Starting out the Indiana Jones normal variant, of course call back to the first segment. Then we got 3 soldiers. I feel like I've talked about these figures 100 times already. This theme has a lot of figures like this. The 2 green guys, you know, the ones who are wearing the green uniforms. I feel like I've talked about them before a lot, so I'm just gonna say they're pretty generic. There's nothing too special about them. They're just figures. The other figure is Colonel Dobnico. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's really fucking spelled weird, dude. It looks so weird. Anyways, he's a pretty decent fig, actually. While his torso print and his, you know, legs don't really do anything for him. I think the face print really adds a lot of character, you know, with those really outlined, cheeks. I think that really works well. Shows that he's old and shows that he's, you know, a really rude guy or whatever. I think it's a really cool fig for a Colonel, and I actually really like it a lot. I think that's a pretty cool fig, and I think that adds a lot of niceness to the set. Moving on to what I believe are the best parts of the set, which are the builds. I'll start out with this small little cave area, which really doesn't do much for me, to be honest. It's not really that big of a cool build or whatever. It's kind of alright. Don't really care for it. Wish it would have been a little bigger, you know, maybe a little more built up. It looks kind of like a facade in my opinion. So yeah, not much of a fan of this build. There's also a lot of vegetation in this set, which I think adds a really cool aesthetic to it. Unlike the cave where it's like, yeah, the jungle cutter's not going to cut through that. Clearly not. I think the shrubbery is really cool. cool. You know, the jungle cutter can cut right through that bitch. I think these plants and these trees, they just work really well for the set. Now, for the cutter itself, I think this is a fantastic build. This is what really makes the set for me. I think my obvious favorite part of this will be the saws in the front and how they work. You know, you move this thing a little bit and those saws just like keep moving and spinning around. I think it works really well, and I think it's really cool, honestly. It really adds a lot of leads to this set for me. I really like it a lot. It's such a cool feature, to be honest, and it makes this vehicle so awesome. Otherwise than that, there are some cool like military stickers on the side, which I think are really cool. You know, they add a little bit to the set. I think they look really nice, but they are a little generic. You know, I've seen them on some other vehicles in this theme already. I think these two satellite type dishes in the front really look cool, and it looks kind of like a battering ram type thing. I think that really looks awesome, and I think it makes this jungle cutter look kind of like this intimidating military vehicle. I think it really benefits the set a lot. Another cool thing is the cockpit area itself. It looks kind of like a tractor almost, but I think it really looks cool, you know, how squared off it is. I kind of didn't want it to be rounded on a vehicle like this, where a lot of stuff is rounded, like the wheels and the treks and the saws. You know, it kind of adds this roundy feel, but this straight up look, just I think it makes it look really cool, to be honest, and I really like this set a lot. Really fantastic set in my opinion. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next on the ranking is set 76A2 Shanghai Chase. All around, this is a pretty fantastic set, so let's start out with the minifigs. So with the minifigs, I'll start out with the Indiana Jones, who is actually not the normal variant this time. Thank God I can say something different. And honestly, I love this figure so much. The torso print's really accurate to the way Harrison Ford's tuxedo was at the beginning of Temple of Doom, you know, with the ballroom scene and whatnot. I don't know if I would call it a ballroom scene, you know, just a concert scene in general. And then, of course, the titular chase. So I really like this Indy figure a lot. I think his torso really adds a lot of character to him. The next figure in this set is the short round, and this is a fantastic minifigure. I think the face print's the best part about him. It's really cool, and it really looks like an annoying young Asian kid who fucking annoyed the shit out of me, but it's still a cool character, I guess. The torso print's also very accurate to short round from the movie, and the hat, the only reason it's not accurate is because there's not a New York Yankees symbol. I'm a Yankees fan, so that pisses me off. I'm just kidding. But, no, I'm not kidding about being a Yankees fan. But I get why they couldn't do it. Copyright and whatnot. They would have had to pay a whole fucking fee for some bullshit Lego piece. Anyways, incredible figure. Moving on, we had the Willie Scott, who is, yes, actually Willie Scott, not Marion. Good for me. Thank God I'm gonna be right. Anyways, I think the detailing on this figure is superb. The crown piece on her hair, I think, adds some effect. The hairpiece in general just looks really cool in my opinion. With the 3D effect it's going off for, with all the layers of her hair and whatnot, I think it looks really good, honestly, and it's a great part of the fig. The face print I could go without. It's that same type of Marion face print that I don't like. You know, it's just that weird printing that just looks, you know, just weird. That's the only way to describe it. Anyways, her torso and leg prints are really detailed for especially a figure in this area, and I think it looks really nice, and I think it adds a lot of effect to the figure as well. Makes her look really glamorous, you know, like this really rich bitch who's just fucking annoying. Yeah, she's annoying in the fucking movie, trust me. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Anyways, there are two other figures in the set which both seem to be members of the Chinese Mafia, and these are two fantastic figures. The detailing is immaculate. I think I want to start out with my favorite part about the figs, which is the face prints. Both of them have really cool face prints. One of them has this really weird grin. It looks super creepy in my opinion, but it's a really cool face print, honestly. It shows off this kind of wise guy-ish feel who just is like a sociopath and doesn't care what he feels or whatever and just wants to murder people. The other one looks like kind of a mob Don, you know, like kind of like Don Corleone, the Godfather or whatever. I think it looks really nice, and it's a really cool, you know, Chinese version of like the Don. I think it's really awesome. And of course, I can't forget to mention the suits that these guys are wearing. It matches. It looks really nice, and it looks really much like gangsters. You know, with the black hat mixed with that black pinstripe suit with the black legs. I think it looks really cool, and it makes these guys really look like, you know, gangstanados, you know, little paisanos. Except they would be Chinese, so I don't know, like, paisano? Anyways, just two more fantastic minifigs down on top of this great set. Moving on to the builds, we have two cars. I guess we'll start out with the Mafioso car. This is a beautiful build in my opinion. One of my favorite parts about it is that it's not just built like a normal car, you know. It actually has a pretty cool structure where it's like a van where in the back they have like this large trunk where you could fit minifigs in. I think it looks really cool in my opinion. I think another cool part about this car is the front. I think it looks really cool with all these light pieces like put up in front of the bumper or whatever. I think it looks really nice. It really adds an effect to this car that it's like kind of crowded, but it still has these lights to show an effect. I don't know how to describe it really, but I think it looks really nice. Another thing are the wheels, which are very thin. I think that looks really good, but they're also very tall and lanky. I think it really adds an effect to this car, like, okay, it moves fast and it kind of goes off rough ground. I think it's really good. There are also bars on the side of the car, next to the car doors or whatever, where it's like a guy can hang off and shoot from there. Actually, in the promo pictures for the set, they have two of the mafiosos looking at Indy, holding onto these bars, I believe. And I think it looks really awesome, and it's a really cool feature in my opinion. Really cool that they added that. What a fantastic build. Now let's move on to the other build of the set, which is Indy's car. Another fantastic car build. Really like that they used a tan color here. You don't see that used a lot for cars, really. I've never seen it really before, except for in Monster Hunters. I think that's about it. Some of the things I really like about this car are the canopy roof and the fact that it opens up, you know, so you can get a good shot of Indy shooting behind at the mobster's car. I think that's really cool, and I think that really adds a lot to this set. By the way, I'm sorry if a lot of my vehicle talk's getting repetitive. There's not a lot of ways to describe vehicles. Another cool part about this car is the front detailing. I think it looks really nice on this vehicle as well as it has on a lot of vehicles I talked about before. You know, just with the way the headlights are placed, the piece they used for the bumper, that great piece, and the cool little, like, tail fin on top of it. I think that really adds a lot of effect, you know, makes it seem like this old-fashioned 1930s car. I really like it a lot, and I really love this set a lot. It's such a fantastic set. Great set. Deserves to be this high on the ranking. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next is set 7197, Venice Canal Chase. This is a pretty fantastic set, and the reason I have this ranked above some of the others is because it really adds an element that the other sets didn't have, which is a little play model, and this play model is really nice too. I'm of course talking about the Venice Bridge area, you know, with the boardwalk or whatever. I wouldn't call it a boardwalk, more like a river walk or whatever. I'm gonna get into more detail with that when I get into the builds area, but this clearly was a huge inspiration for the Spider-Man Far From Home Venice Canal Chase. In fact, it's practically the same set, just with two boat builds and a less specific, I guess I would say, Venice area. Otherwise, in that little tangent, let's get right into the minifigs. First off, we have the Indiana Jones, who is different from any other variant. He's wearing like a normal, like, I don't know, casual Friday suit, I guess I would call it. Maybe not that, but, you know, something in that realm. I do think the torso adds a lot of character to this figure, and I really like this figure a lot. Really great fig. Moving on, we have the Willie Scott, who's driving the boat in the promo picture. I think she's a decent fig. Don't like her face print whatsoever. I think the torso's alright, doesn't add much to her. And she has a more basic hairpiece here than she did in the Shanghai Chase set, which definitely downgrades her a little, but I think she's a decent fig. Moving on from her, we have like these two Venice crooks, which I think are really cool figures. They have some really cool face prints, which we have also seen in the Chachula Cemetery battle. I still hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I think it works here very well too. For these Venice, you know, robbers trying to chase after Indy and Willie Scott, I think it's really cool, and I think they're really cool figs. The fezzes they have on, I think that adds a little bit of a cool aspect to them, and their torsos are really nice too. They're really detailed. It's shocking, the torsos they give these guys. You'd think they would just give them some Joe Schmo, like, random ass torso, like some random Lego fucking city torso, but no, they gave them these really cool torsos, and I like it a lot. Pretty great minifigs in my opinion. So let's move on to the other part of the set, which is the builds. Now we have a couple of builds for this set, so I'm gonna start out with the two boats. Both these boats are nearly identical, with one of them just having a different tan color on the top, which is being the one with Indy and Willie Scott. Since both boats are basically identical, there really isn't much to say about both. I don't really want to distinguish between the two, so I guess I'm just gonna talk about a generality of both of them, and then, you know, it'll be one or whatever. Really, I think one of the coolest parts about the boats is the way that they're brick built. The frame is, unlike in a lot of Lego boats where it's just a, you know, a solid plastic, just a normal one-piece frame. This is actually brick built, so where you can see it's like one stud up, or, you know, whatever the Lego technical term is. I don't want to sound retarded here, but it's pretty cool in my opinion, and I really like that aesthetic of the boats. As I mentioned before, really the only difference between the two is the color change on the top. There are actually a couple of other color changes, such as the flags, as one of them is black and the other's red, and, you know, there's studs at the front. One of them's translucent green, the other's translucent red. As well, there are like these buoys on the side of the boat. That's what I'm assuming they are. On one of the boats they're black, and on the other boats they're white. You know, just a lot of color changes. It really adds an interesting feature to this set. Both these boats also have a lot of play features, such as on the dark tan one, when you press down on that middle section, it kind of, the back half kind of breaks apart, you know. It's really cool in my opinion. Also on the light tan one, you can push down on it a little bit and the engine will pop out. You know, just some really cool play features onto this set. That's really all I have to say about the boats, but the other build of the set is the Venice Bridge. While definitely weaker than the Far From Home one, it came first, so I can't really, you know, use that as a knock against it. I think it's a pretty cool build. I think the best parts about this little bridge area are, of course, like the little rat sewer hole, manhole, or whatever you like to call it. I think it's pretty cool that they added that. You know, they could have just been a fucking platform for all we knew. But the fact that they added that showed that they weren't just gonna add some bullshit filler, you know. I think it looks pretty good. Another really cool part of this bridge area is this little dock they have built. I think it's really cool in the fact that they interlude the dark brown and the light brown in it, you know, with the pattern going back and forth, back and forth. I think that's really cool, honestly. And I kind of like the color scheme that they have going here with the tan and blue and all the different colors in the blue, like the dark gray and the blue. I think it looks really nice, to be honest. And I think this set's really fantastic. Just a great set in general. Let's move on to the next set in the ranking. Nexus set 7628, Peril in Peru. Now with this set, what you're getting is a lot of minifigs, good or bad, and you're getting some great builds. So let's get right into it. So with the minifigs, 5 out of 6 of these minifigs are repeats. I've already talked about them, so I will not be talking about them in this segment. But what I will say is we have the Indy, the Mutt, the Arena Spaco, and 2 of the Army guys. One of the Army guys actually has a name. I really don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's really weird. Like, it's weirdly pronounced. It's a weird fucking name. The only other figure in this set is some basic pilot who has like the Bruce Wayne face and a very basic pilot torso with a, you know, like a police hat or whatever. I think is a decent fig. Really not much to it. What I do like some of the repeat figs though. You know, Arena Spaco, she hasn't been in a lot of sets really. And Mutt Williams is another good one. But the other ones, minifigs are really in this set. Anyways, we can move on to the builds now. And this is where the set really is going to start to get a lot of praise for me because I think a lot of the builds are fantastic. Starting out, we have some little airport builds. There are 2 of them in this set. One of them's like this little tractor that like moves around. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this build is too much. I think it's all right though. It doesn't really do any harm to me. The other's like this luggage cart, which I think is really cool. The fact that they added that in this set really adds this depth of theme that really isn't added in a lot of sets. I think it makes this set a lot better for me, even though it's just a little stupid build. There are some like accessory crates in this set which would hold like the crystal skull or whatever. Those don't really add anything to the set, you know, just a little feature. That's about it. There's a military vehicle that comes with the set, you know, it's like a car. It's not that bad of a build, to be honest. I actually like it a lot. I think it's really cool, and it really actually gives them a reason to have the figure of the army man in this set. I really wouldn't have cared if they put that fig in with no army vehicle. I'd be like, why the hell is he here? It makes no sense. But the fact that they put that there, I think it makes it a lot better. The only other build to talk about in this set is the main build, which is the plane. I like this plane build a lot. The exterior detailing especially is fantastic. I really like the color scheme of the plane a lot, you know, with the yellow and the dark blue. I think that's a really nice color scheme. Also, the white goes, you know, it surrounds it. It makes it look really nice. And the logo, the Pangira Airlines, Pangara, however you pronounce it, I'm sorry. I think it really works well. I really like this exterior for this plane build a lot. Admittedly, the interior is very plain. You know, there's not much in there. That's really what brings down this plane build a lot. But I actually really like this plane a lot. It's one of my favorite plane builds I think I've ever seen, especially exterior-wise. Not to mention, there's a little luggage compartment, which is really cool. I really like to see that in planes. Usually, you won't get anything like that. Lego, it'll just be a solid body, just bricks. It doesn't open or anything. But the fact that it has something like that, the storage compartment, I think it's really cool. And I really like this set a lot. Really fantastic set. Let's move on to the next set in the ranking. At number 4 is set 7199, Temple of Doom. What this set for sure gets right is the minifigs. I think the minifigs are fantastic. The build is pretty so let's get right into it. There are about 6 minifigs in the set. There's only 1 repeat though, which is really good. The only repeat is Short Round, who's a fantastic fig, and you really couldn't have made this set without Short Round. It wouldn't have made any sense in my opinion. But yeah, it's pretty great that we get him. Let's start out with the Indiana Jones, who is exclusive to the set. The main difference between this Indy and the other Indies we always get is the face print. The face print's an exclusive print, and I think it looks really good on him. It really shows this cocky attitude that he really resembles in the movie. I really like it a lot, honestly. We have got the torso before, I believe. Don't quote me on that one, though, because we might not have. I believe we got it in the ambush from Cairo, if I am correct. And there's also, you know, the hat and the pants we've gotten before, too. But I think this is a great indie figure. The next figure I want to talk about is a Willie Scott, who is exclusive to the set as well. I think what I really like about this fig is the torso and leg prints, and that's really the main exclusive part about her. I think it looks really nice, and it's like a really good resemblance of the character in this scene in the movie. I know I said that before, but, you know, it's true. It really is. This is a great fig. Still don't like that face print or that style of face prints. I think it looks really fucking weird, but I think this is a great fig, honestly. The next fig I want to talk about is the Moolah Ram, who I think is the best Indiana Jones figure we've ever gotten. The detailing on him is, like, immaculate. It's incredible. My favorite part about him is probably his helmet piece. I think it's really cool the way that there's, like, this Lego head inside this, the area right there, if you see what I'm pointing at. And then the horns really add this whole nother layer to him. I think that's really cool, honestly. And his face print's also really fantastic, and so is his torso print, really. I think it's all really great. This is my favorite Indiana Jones fig by far. There are also 2 Temple cards, who I will talk about them individually because they're both actually great figures. The detailing on both of them is pretty insane. Now, Temple Guard number 1, he has this weird, like, burnt face, you know, kind of like the Darth Vader from Revenge Revenge of the Sith. I think that's a really cool face print. It really looks cool. I'm sure it's like paint or whatever, you know, trying to, you know, show this cult, but I think it's really awesome, this face print a lot. I really like that. Also, the turban is a pretty cool, you know, it's a pretty cool thing to add here too. I think that looks really nice. And yeah, that's what I really love about this fig. The other guard is Temple Guard 2, who in my opinion, his face looks really Leppin. I don't know why, it just has weird printing, but it is a cool print nonetheless. Honestly, I think the face print adds a lot of character that you wouldn't get from, you know, just some normal Russian guard from any of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sets. I also really like his torso as well. I think this might be my favorite torso out of the two that we've seen so far from the Temple Guards. I think this one really works out a lot better, you know, with the scarf surrounding him. I really like it a lot, to be honest, and I like this fig a lot. Now on to my least favorite part of the set, which is the build itself. My main problem with the build is that it's just really a minecart. It's not much of a temple, really. I do really like this area where Mula Ram and Indy are fighting. I think that's probably my favorite part of the set, but a lot of the minecart stuff really throws me off. I'm gonna go a little more in detail with some of the segments of the temple. I guess I'm gonna start out with my favorite part, which is this area, you know, this little throne area or whatever. I think this looks really cool. The skull and the thorn in the background really looks nice, and I like the way that it's built, especially the skull with those translucent orange studs. I think that looks really nice, to be honest, and that really pops off the eyes, you know. But I do also really like these thorn pieces. I think they look really nice. You know, they're built out of some parts that you see on like Brainiac's ship from 2015 or whatever. I think it looks really nice, to be honest, and I really like that part of the set a lot. Also, another thing I like how this is built up a lot. I really think that looks cool. The way it's built up with these rock and these fucking translucent orange rock fucking pieces. I know he said rock twice, but that's what you gotta say when it comes to these pieces. I think they look really nice, and I think it makes it look nice a lot. I also like the amount of random skulls there are on here. I think it actually adds a real cool effect of, you know, a lot of people die here. You know, pretty cool, am I right, boys? Anyways, I really like this area a lot, and that's really the most praise I'm gonna get for this build. The other areas, such as the minecart itself, while cool and yes, accurate to the scene in the movie, I don't think it needed to be this big. I think it could have been a smaller aspect of the set. It would have made it a lot more of a temple, and honestly, I would have liked it a lot, but I don't. You know, it's not bad that we're getting a minecart. I don't mind it, but it could have been, you know, what it could have been would have been amazing. Anyways, I kind of like this little area, you know, in the middle of the minecart where it's like this, I don't know what you'd call it, like a little docking bay, some shit like that. I think it's decent, you know, I'm glad that it's not just a full track all the way down. I'm glad they changed it up a little bit. But I think this set's pretty great. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next is set 7683, Fight of the Flying Wing. Kind of a mouthful there, not gonna lie. Anyways, this set has a combination of some decent minifigs and a great build. Let's start out with the minifigs. For the minifigs in the set, we have 3 repeats, which are the Indiana Jones Great Fig, the Marion, decent, you know, nothing's too special, and the German Soldier number 5, who's also known as like a pilot or whatever. I think it's a pretty cool fig as well. The only other fig in this set is who they call an airplane mechanic, but we all know this guy as the guy from Raiders who fucking gets his head chopped off from the propellers on the Nazi plane. You know, just that big fucking strong Nazi guy. Honestly, getting this fig is really cool. I get why it's named airplane mechanic and not, you know, random Nazi guy or whatever the fuck his name is, because I don't think that would go down well for a toy like Lego, you know? I think my favorite parts about this fig are the head and the torso. The head, I think, really fits him well. It really looks like the actual guy from the movie. It's a good combination, especially with that bushy mustache. I think it really works. Works out really well. The torso is also really cool. You know, this printing of this huge muscular, you know, just torso. I think it looks really nice. The, you know, it's gonna be hard to describe this. I don't know, the defined abs. Defined abs, there you go. That's one way to put it. You know, I think that looks really good. The fact is, I think this is really good printing and really high quality printing for Lego in these times, because Lego used to just, you know, just print a little bit of stuff and then they used to say, hey, this is the most well-designed printed minifig of all time. But here, they actually put some detail here, so I actually really like that. Pretty great fig in my opinion. That's all I gotta say about the minifig, so let's move on to the builds of the set. We have about 2 builds in the set. One of them, I guess you could call like a little tanker truck or whatever. You know, it's just, it would pump gas into the plane. I think this is a really cool build to add, to be honest, because it's not like some random army vehicle they just put in there as filler. You know, it's really cool. It's like a mechanical thing, so it could fix up the plane. You know, you'd expect to see this on a runway. It's not something that just comes out of nowhere. Some parts that I really like about this build are the sticker details on the side of the tank. I think that really helps give an interpretation of what's happening here, instead of, you know, just some random truck with no stickers, no detailing whatsoever. I also really like the color scheme of this truck. I think the dark gray works really well for a type of vehicle like this. It really shows like this old rustic, you know, plain feel. It doesn't need to be fancy or shine or anything. Something I will say though is in the front, this is kind of like that military vehicle from the last segment. You know, it kind of just goes off edge with these two tan 1x1 like rolled, I don't know what you'd call them, circular pieces. Spherical would be a better term, I'm sorry. I think these just really ruined the immersion here. It's really stupid that they couldn't have just put like a 2x4 plate in front of here instead of, you know, what they did. I think it looks kind of dumb and it kind of doesn't ruin the vehicle, but it almost, you know, just kind of ruins the immersion a little bit. Anyways, I think it's a pretty great build. The only other build to talk about in this set is the big fucking green plane here. It's such a cool build in my opinion, and this is what really makes this set above a lot of the others. Now, one thing I will say, of course they weren't gonna put swastikas on this. That's kind of dumb if they would. I mean, it would be dumb PR move on Lego's side, obviously. You know, but it would be a little cool, you know, we could have our Lego swastika pieces. It would be amazing. I'm sure OTC Studios would love that. Anyways, with that tangent out of the way, I kind of want to talk about a lot of the stuff with the build itself. First off, I think the cockpit is fantastic. It's one of the better ones you see in a set from this era. I think it looks really nice. It's kind of like one of those Anakin, you know, Jedi fighters. I don't know what their correct name is, I'm sorry, but it kind of is the same piece as that, but it's in this green color, and I think it looks really cool, and the fact that I like how big it is, really. I don't like the, you know, most sets would be like, oh, we got a small helicopter canopy piece here, but no, I think I really like that this is like all bubbly, and it's really popping off from the set. Another really cool part of this build, I think, are these built-up fin pieces. I guess that's what you would call them. You know, in a lot of sets like the Joker's helicopters, they're like very thin, and they're like one piece. I feel like these are one piece, obviously, but they're like very big, very tall. I really like that how they stand out. One thing I will say about this build is it's a very ginormous build. You know, it tends to stay away from any small pieces whatsoever, which I think is really good. It means this plane is probably fucking huge. Like, it's like the fucking new Bentar probably with the size. Another really cool part about this build is just the color scheme itself. You know, the dark grays mixed with the dark green, I think looks really good, honestly. You don't see that a lot on really any Lego sets whatsoever. I think it's really cool that we get that here. I also really like that this is a dual cockpit vehicle. You know, you got the big cockpit in the front, which I talked about before, and the cockpit in the back with the fighter gun, I guess you would call it. I think that's really cool, to be honest. I really like that a lot. You know, I talked about another set that had the turret gun in the back, but I like it here a lot too, because it kind of looks more like, you know, just a stationary one, not one that swerves around or whatnot. I think it's really cool, to be honest, and it looks like something from this era. Anyways, this is just a fantastic set in general. I love it a lot for a lot of reasons. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. Up next is set 7627, Temple of the Crystal Skull. Now, there are a lot of aspects to the set, just a lot of stuff in general, so let's get right into the minifigs. There are about 6 minifigures in the set, and 4 of them are repeats, which are Indiana Jones, who of course I've talked about before, but he's a great fig, Mutt Williams, another great fig, Arena Spalko, another great fig, and this one Russian guard, who's, you know, nothing really to write home about with him. The other 2 figures of the set are called Yugha Warriors, I believe that's how it's pronounced. One of them has a hairpiece and the other doesn't. I think these figures are actually really cool. I like the printing they have in the skin tone. I think that's really interesting. You know, it makes them unique a little. I think the head print's really nice too. You know, it shows this stubborn look of like some native on their land who doesn't want anyone to disturb them. You know, I think it looks really cool. And some of this printing they have on their torso as well looks really nice. Such as that teeth necklace. I think that looks really cool. Honestly, I like that a lot. I feel like a lot of like native stereotypes, it's like that teeth necklace. But, you know, maybe it's true. I don't know. Don't get me on this. This will get me canceled more than fucking anything. I think these 2 are just great minifigs in general. Especially the one with the hair, though. I think that's a better fig. But that's all we have to say for the minifigs of the set. Let's move on to the build. Now, there's a lot to talk about with the builds in this set. I'll start out with some of the smaller ones, then get to the temple itself. Really, there are 2 smaller builds. One of them is this ugly fucking looking gate. It's pretty cool, the fact that it kind of, you know, is like a temple gate. But it's not really the thing for me. I really don't care for it too much. It's just a facade. It doesn't do much for me. The other small build in this set is this small military vehicle, which is a really bad build in my opinion. I think it looks really stupid. It doesn't even look like even a tank or maybe a army car or whatever you'd like to call it. It looks really dumb. The way it's built with that dark tan in the front just looks stupid in my opinion. It, like, any immersion from this car is just thrown away with that shitty dark tan piece in the front. Honestly, it looks like the Lego designer didn't even just give a fuck with this. He was just like, okay, I got like 50 more pieces. I gotta add this shit. Let me just, you know, just build something real quick with a military vehicle. It looks fucking terrible. I'm sorry for that, by the way. It absolutely looks horrible. I like the headlights are just up on top of the fucking hood. I don't know why the hood is that color. It's ridiculous. I guess the military military treks are cool. You know, the Bane's Mole Machine military treks. I guess that's cool to get in this set, but like, really, this is a shitty fucking vehicle and just a waste of money. Now, on to the main attraction, which is the temple itself. And I actually really like this build a lot. My main problem with it is it does seem a little childish, you know. It's kind of like a bunch of big bricks, you know. It really doesn't help the price per piece at all. Now, some of the aspects that I absolutely love about this build are like this little round area, this spin table, I don't know what you would call it, this rotundra, if you will, of these 3 skeletons with the crystal skulls. I think that's a really cool area, in my opinion. You know, it's a really cool feature. It's kind of like the, you know, the Batcave area, you know, where you put the Batmobile down, and then 2006 one where you spin it. That's really cool, honestly, and I like to have that in this set. It's much smaller than the one in the Batcave, but hey, it looks pretty cool to me. Another thing I can really compliment this set on is the overall layout. I think it's really nice. The fact that it's really wide, you know, it's a 32 by 32 base plate, and it's really tall too. It's actually a really tall temple. I think that's really cool. You know, there's a lot of room for these figures to be fighting and, you know, doing action and whatnot, to make sets and whatnot. I think it's really cool. There are also some really cool play features in the set, such as on the exterior, the stairs that lead up to the entrance of the temple. When you put a minifig on there, you can pop the stairs out because the stairs aren't attached by any studs. But this is also a flaw in the set, because if you move around the set too much, you know, the stairs are just gonna fall off immediately, which is a problem. But I think it's really cool if you just have the set stationary somewhere, and then you just want to, you know, do a little cool, you know, want to play around with the set a little bit, you know, and then you just have like someone go on the stairs and you just flick them off. I think it's really cool. Something else I think that's cool is on the exterior of the crystal skull. You know, the entrance is like kind of like the gate, really, where it has that weird fucking head or whatever, but the eyeballs are actually flick fire missiles, so you can just, you know, flick them out. I think it's really cool, honestly. It's a really cool touch, you know. I really wouldn't have thought Lego would have done it. I think something else really cool is that this top area, like this weird looking dome thing or whatever, it actually opens up and goes into a totally different position, which makes it look a lot better, in my opinion, from the inside than how it does in this promotional image. Anyways, this is a pretty fantastic set. Let's move on to the next set on the ranking. And finally, coming in at first place is set 7623 Temple Escape. This set is absolutely fantastic. The quintessential Indiana Jones set, if you ask me. So let's get right into it by starting out with the minifigs. Starting out with the minifigs, there are about 6 in this set, and only one of them is a repeat, which is the Indiana Jones, who I've talked about probably 100 times in this video already, not even exaggerating. And yeah, he's a pretty great fig. Glad we got him in this set. The rest of the figs in the set are pretty generic. Starting out, we have this, who is described as Jock on Brick set. He's just like this pilot type guy. He's not a bad fig whatsoever. I really like his face a lot. It's like a normal Lego face, but in white, if you know what I'm saying, because most of them would be in like yellow in this expression. No, but I really like this fig a lot. Moving on, we have Renee Belloc. Yeah, that's not a household name from the Indiana Jones franchise, but he is in this set. He's very basic. I do like his hat piece a lot. It's the same one as Indy's dad had, so that's pretty cool in my opinion. But really, his face print is very generic, and his torso print is too, but it is decent. He's a decent fig. We also have this fig called Satipo, or, you know, Sativa, if you're one of those guys. You know, he's an alright fig. Very generic as well. I like his torso print a lot, I can say that. For some reason, it doesn't match his face tone, though. His face tone is very pale, and his torso print, like the skin area, you can see it's not very pale at all whatsoever. But I still think he's a decent fig. Anyways, time to move on to my favorite part of the set, which are the builds. Now, the builds are incredible in this set. I'll start out with this airplane, which looks really basic, but really cool, to be honest. I really like this airplane build a lot. I know, like, the landing gear, that's, like, the main area that looks super basic, but I think it's really cool. The fact that Lego made an airplane that's all white kind of interests me. Well, there's a little bit of red and black, you know, that shit, of course, but it's, like, mainly white. I think it's really cool that they added this basic of a build in the set like this. I really like it a lot. Anyways, the other build of the set is the temple itself, which, what a fantastic build this is. Of course, this is based on the first scene in Raiders where we get the ball rolling, you know, literally, of course, where, Indy, you know, he steps on the, he fucking tries to take the, arc or whatever. It's not an arc or whatever, but, he tries to take it, and then he, you know, the ball starts rolling down, and he has to avoid it. One of the things I think is really cool about the temple is the big round fucking rock ball or whatever. It's actually a feature in this set where it rolls down and Indy has to run away from it. I think that's really cool and really awesome. The fact that they added that, I feel like Lego could have just been lazy and been like, yeah, we got the round ball, you can put it down on the platform and, you know, he can run. But no, they actually have areas for it to roll, and I think that's really cool. Other great features about this set, in my opinion, are the booby trap floor. I think that's really cool, and it also has a really funny joke in a Forest Fire video. Obviously, if you don't watch Forest Fire, I don't think you're a good person. Sorry, it's just true, objectively, of course, because his videos are fucking amazing. They're pieces of art. Anyways, I just think the trap floor is really cool. Another great part of this set is a lot of the vegetation. I really like the atmosphere of this set a lot. They added a lot of vegetation, you know, it's all tan. It looks really cool, and it looks a lot like how the temple did at the beginning of Raiders. Another great area is where the Ark, or whatever you'd like to call it, the fucking head, you know, the golden head, or whatever is where it's held. I think that's a really cool area in my opinion. I don't know how the play feature would work because they couldn't make it, because it would be, I think, feasibly impossible without doing some weird technique where you would lift that up and then, you know, the fucking ball would start rolling. It would be something absurd. But I think it's a great area in my opinion, honestly, and I love this set so much. What a fantastic set. This definitely, I think, belongs in #1. I think it has the best of every Indiana Jones set, and really, Indiana Jones was a great theme in general. I'm glad you guys stuck around to watch this video. It was a real pain in the ass for me to make, I'll tell you that. It took me about a month, you know, with a lot of time off, of course. I was a little lazy during a lot of it, but over like the past week and a half, I've been working my ass off on this video, and I'm finally glad that I got it done, because this was a big pain in the ass. Anyways, see you next time, guys.